Welcome to the Cloak and Dagger podcast. On this podcast, we'll be talking about freeform show Cloak and Dagger. Here are your hosts, Kat and Butch.
Everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cloak and Dagger podcast. My name is Kat, and I am here as always with my co-host Butch.
Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? If you guys are missing Cloak and Dagger, we're here with you. We miss them too, and we're going to talk about how you can fix that.
Yes, so today we're going to go beyond the show and talk about where everybody can get their Cloak and Dagger fix while we are waiting for Freeform show to come back. So obviously the best place to look is going to be in the comics, as that's where Cloak and Dagger got their start way back in 1982. Right, Butch?
Yeah, that's right. They're about as old as I am. So, if you guys, there's a lot of Cloak and Dagger stories that have been published in 40 years, even though they're not the most popular characters. Around 40 years is enough for a fair amount of stories to read through.
Yeah, so I did a little research into the history of the comics, and it was 1982 that they first appeared in the Spectacular Spider-Man number 64. And then they got their own 4-issue limited series in October of 1983.
That's right.
And I don't know how comic books run, if this is something that's typically done, but they decided to go bi-monthly with the Cloak and Dagger series in 1985. So the 4-issue run must have been popular enough to give them their own bi-monthly run. But after issue 11, Marvel decided to combine it with Doctor Strange into a monthly double feature.
Yeah. Okay. So, obviously, I wasn't around. I was around, but I wasn't reading comics back then. I was a little bit too young for this stuff. From what I gather, it feels like they first appeared as guest characters in the Spider-Man comic books, and whenever they'd appear, people would, the reaction would always be fantastic and positive, and there would be demand for more. And then they'd make another appearance, and people would be like, more, and then they'd do, and Marvel would be like, okay, here's a series, a limited series, and the fans were there. But the problem was, like, they had enough fans for continuous guest appearances. But what Marvel found out was the sales just weren't there for like a sustained run. Like, unlike their big properties, like your X-Men, your Iron Man. So they'd always try, and then just the numbers weren't there. So they'd have to, like, come up with another series, and like in 2 years they'd try again. And the interest was there, so they keep trying. And that's actually been the case for them for the characters for most of their existence. Like, they're definitely, like, they're the quintessential definition of a cult favorite, because you have a small group of, like, fans who are really, really into Cloak and Dagger, but yeah, they're just not enough. So you'd have to do things like combine them with Doctor Strange, which was he was actually in the same boat in the 80s. So Doctor Strange, he's more famous, but they're like, the numbers, we can't justify his series, so we'll combine him with these other cult favorites. And then again, like, the interest was, it's just so funny because the interest is just too high for that. The interest was too high for that. So after, like, 2 years, I think, they're like, okay, these two characters are too popular. We'll spin them back into their own series. So they came together for 2 years, and they broke apart. Then there was another Cloak and Dagger series and another Doctor Strange series. And again, neither one lasted, because they were, so they're in, like, this weird spot where there's always interest, but it's never enough to have a long sustained run.
Yeah, it's never sustainable. So when they were split back up, they did go 19 issues, which sounds like a long run for them. But I'm laughing at the title because they retitled it. Instead of Cloak and Dagger, it was called The Mutant Misadventures of Cloak and Dagger, which I guess to me just sounds like it sounds like a parody of something. It sounds like I don't know. It sounds a little silly to me. But they went for
Yeah.
19 issues.
Yeah. 19 more, and I think that's, yeah, so far that's been their longest run. It's one of those things again where, again, so whenever they go away, the audience is always like, give us more, we miss them, we miss these characters. And they're like, what can we do? So from what I remember, they're like, okay, let's make them mutants, like the X-Men are selling. Okay, so
Right.
so Cloak and Dagger are what was the word for them? Can't remember. Like mutates. I think that's so they came up with this BS thing where they're like they're mutants, but unlike other mutants where they hit adolescence and their powers just activate. These guys had needed like the drug thing from their actual origin to activate their latent mutant powers. So some crazy made up crap just to slap on the mutant the mutant label on their title, which, and we're like, okay, so this is gonna sell like crazy because we associate them with the X-Men, and I think the first issue they had like some of the X-Men members show up, and to tie that in, and ever since like their earlier stories, they were always associated with the New Mutants or like younger X-Men. So they've always had that, and then they just made the ties a little bit stronger, hoping that would lead to more sales. And again, we'd find out that it's not enough, just wasn't enough. But they tried.
Yeah, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out around then too, so they were probably jumping on that the mutant wagon of all the mutant success. It's just I thought it was funny that they called it the Misadventures because it just sounds like the Cloak and Dagger are like these like clumsy superheroes trying to solve things, but they're just making more of a mess out of everything.
Actually, it's interesting. Interesting you'd say that because for a large chunk of that run, Dagger was blind, so she actually was clumsy.
Oh, yeah, I did read that.
Yeah, she was like, I don't know why they did that, but can you imagine? Like, you make your maybe they're just looking for more hurdles for the characters to go through, but you only have two main characters, and you make one of them blind, and not like Daredevil, cool blind, but legit blind, and she has to spend several issues like trying to figure out how to walk around and navigate, and there's
superhero.
Yeah, and it's like this is kind of boring. And she's a teenager, yeah. So not a good choice for Marvel there, I think.
No, it's funny because like when you look at this from somebody who was not into comic books when they were a kid, because I was a kid when you and I are like the same age. We were kids when this stuff was out. So you look at it from somebody who was not into comics as a kid, and you see like the soap opera-ness of everything. It's like, oh, well, this isn't working, so we'll just, bring this person back from the dead, or we'll give them some kind of, random, now Dagger's blind, and we'll have to work through that. So it works in every area of storytelling when you're kind of trying to look for something to bring a fresh audience. You kind of you can do things like that and people forgive it.
Absolutely. And we'll see as we continue talking about it, that happens even up to their present story.
And we should mention too that they did make it into the Spider-Ham parody as Croak and Badger.
Yeah, Croak and Badger. Shout out to the Peter Porker Power
Hour podcast.
Yeah, to those guys. Yeah, so that was fun. I never actually read that, but I always knew it happened. So when I looked for the graphic for our crossover episodes, I'm like, they're like I forgot which animals they were. So Cloak,
Cloak
as a frog.
Yes,
it's pretty funny.
And on a side note, I just saw that they are making, and by they I mean Funko, is making a Peter Porker pop. So the Spider Ham pop.
Ooh.
So it's
Like,
like a
is it
pig dressed up as Spider-Man.
for like regular release? It's not like a limited
Yeah,
edition thing.
I have no idea. I just saw a picture of it, but I thought that
Oh
was
man.
neat. And then I thought if Spider-Man can get this like random subset of Spider-Man, then we should be able to get Cloak and Dagger pops. But we'll talk about that when we
Fingers
get to the
crossed.
toys section.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Uh,
Anyway, with these comic books, for anyone who's interested in the early comic appearances, you can pick up the Cloak and Dagger Shadows and Light trade paperback. It's pretty thick. It's like 400 plus pages for around $35. Maybe probably get it cheaper on Amazon. And it collects everything from their first appearances to their all their, like I said, their early guest appearances when they'd make sporadic Spider-Man appearances, and then their first main series, which was actually the origin and the first time we see characters that we know from the show, like Father Delgado and Detective O'Reilly. That's how.
Ooh.
That's what. So you'll get all of that.
and that's in the Shadows and Light collection.
Yeah, all these comics came out in the '80s, so that's probably for the. I don't know if it's for everyone's taste, because comics back then were very melodramatic and verbose. The art might be a little bit dated too, but again, if you're coming from the show and you don't know stuff, I mean, you don't know comic books, you're not used to comic book art yet, you might like it. Like, it might be your jam. So, but that is definitely if you want the early stuff, all the important stuff, Cloak and Dagger, Shadows and Light is what you want.
Okay, I'm gonna put a picture up of that. If you guys are watching the video, I'm having some webcam issues, so we don't have video, but we will be putting up pictures of everything that we're talking about today, or most of the things that we're talking about today. So if you'd like to see a reference of that, check out the video. Let's see, I'm looking at your list here, Butch. What is Cloak and Dagger Runaways and Reversals?
Okay, so that collects all the. That's a trade paperback. It came out a few years ago. It collects all the recent appearances from Cloak and Dagger, so it's actually a good kind of, I guess, companion piece to Shadows and Light. If you want like modern comic book sensibilities of in your comic books, that's the one you want, because that has the stuff they did with the Runaways. The other Marvel comic book TV show that a lot of people are interested in them, like crossing over into in the TV world, I guess. So, and what I feel like would be one of the better Cloak and Dagger stories to go get into coming from the TV show would be the Spider Island storyline that came out maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. So Spider Island was like a big Spider-Man event where everyone in New York suddenly got Peter Parker's powers, right?
That's awful.
It sounds,
Did they
it's
all
pretty
collectively get bit by a spider?
bad. It's one spider biting everyone in New York. So anyway, so there was like a big event, and obviously, with great power comes great responsibility. We all know that. Not everyone in New York, I guess, feels the same way. So everybody started being, I don't know, doing selfish things, I guess. So the crime and stuff, and so it was Spider-Man and all of his friends. So he got all of his friends together to kind of figure out what was happening and how to stop all these regular citizens suddenly running around with Spider-Man's powers. And the interesting thing is Cloak and Dagger. They sort of Marvel sort of used that as an excuse to publish a Cloak and Dagger story. Again, they're not the most popular characters, so they'll find reasons to get these comics out. So Cloak and Dagger, they get drafted into the fight, And in the middle of this big fight, they're with, I don't know, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, all these guys. Dagger just walks out. I don't know if it's funny or awkward, but she just walks out because she has to go to school. And
Tandy goes to school?
yeah, she went back to university. I guess she was in college. She's in college. She's trying to finish her degree, I guess. And anyway, so that's the end of their tie into to Spider Island. So it's interesting because halfway through the first issue, she's gone, and you have a separate story for Cloak and Dagger. So they really just use it as an excuse to tell a Cloak and Dagger story. And yeah, it's a really good one too. It stars the villain of the story is Mr. Negative, who's a recent Spider-Man villain, and he looks like he's all in black and white, like his skin is all black and white, and his costume, and his power is to sort of like coerce people into, like, he can control people, something like mind control. And somebody had like this bright idea, like somebody had like looked at him, just looked at him. If you see a picture of Mr. Negative, he's like, that guy would make a good Cloak and Dagger villain because he's black and white. And so thematically, like, you look at the visual, it's like, ooh, this makes sense. So the writer of that story, Nick Spencer, I guess, he came up with this angle where, well, I don't want to spoil it, but it's like it's like just 3 issues, and all of it is in runways and reversals. So that's why it's sort of a good purchase, because if the style of the story is very modern, like I said, the approach, I guess. So if you're coming in from the show, you'll feel, it'll be an easy transition, I guess, if you're in that age group, or someone who appreciates, someone who's not necessarily into like retro storytelling. So if I'm trying not to spoil it, so I'm trying not to say too much about it, but there's a lot of humor in it, a lot of action, and yeah, it's just a good modern Cloak and Dagger story. And that was the last, I believe that was the last Cloak and Dagger. Those were the last Cloak and Dagger issues before the new comics that came out this year to tie into the TV show.
Yeah, and those just came out literally like a couple months ago, correct?
Yeah, I was wondering why everyone was doing Cloak and Dagger merchandise, I guess, or products, except for Marvel, and as the show was coming out, which is not their style. And then when the show came out, I think it must have been the same week, maybe even, they're like, surprise, we have a Cloak and Dagger comic book. And the reason why they were able to hold that off for the longest time was that it was coming out as a digital comic book, which is just a comic book, except it's just you read it online, I guess, through an app, or through an app. So they didn't need to print it out. They didn't need to distribute it to their comic book shops. So they were able to hold off until the very last minute, and they timed it with the show. And because of the way comic books work, the Cloak and Dagger comic book comes out once every month. So even though the show has been finished for a few weeks, the comic book is still going on, and it's 6 issues, and 4 issues have come out. And so that obviously that is the most up to date and most modern of the Cloak and Dagger comic books.
And I like the way that it's drawn. I'm looking at the picture that you sent me, and I will be putting that up to show for the podcast. But I like how Tandy looks older. They definitely look more in control of their powers as compared to the show, because that's what I'm familiar with. But I do like the look of the new Cloak and Dagger webcomic. It looks pretty amazing. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, for people coming in from the show, so you're looking at I guess the opposite of Cloak and Dagger from the TV show, where they're still getting their powers, still getting used to it to their abilities. So here you have a Cloak and Dagger that's been around for I don't know, at least 10 years of quote unquote comic book time. Um, their powers are they're fully in control of their powers, and I guess that the thing will really stick out is that they are not partners when the story starts. Um, Dagger is off doing her own thing. They didn't really explain too much of the split. More of like Dagger just says she needs to move on. She's kind of outgrown Cloak at this point. What do you call this? She's working as a sort of a consultant for the local police, and so she's investigating whatever super crime. Meanwhile, Cloak is still very much keeping an eye out on her, and which is easy for him, right? Because he can teleport, he can hide in shadows, so he's kind of not ready to let go. But on the side, what he's doing is he handles like security for celebrities. That's his day job, I guess. So, which is very useful because he can teleport them whenever there's paparazzi around, and you can watch. It is, and he actually does that in one of the issues. So yeah, so that's where we are, and then they have to investigate some crimes because some bodies turn up, and Dagger, in her role as sort of a detective, some bodies turn up and they look like what people look like when Cloak gets done feeding on them. So she's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing, Cloak?" And that's the mystery that unfolds over the next 6 issues.
So it's a standalone story, like continuing on from their original storyline. It's not based on the TV show. It's not something they just did because of the TV show.
Yes, that's actually a good point. Yeah, it's more for if you've been following Cloak and Dagger in the comic books. Okay. This is where they are now. And she's got a wild haircut. I'm not sure if you can tell from the image.
The image I'm looking at, she's got it pulled back in a ponytail. She looks super in control of the situation.
Yeah, her hair's like the sides of her hair are like shaved, and she has like a pattern. I don't know if it's like a dagger pattern. I don't know if you can see it.
2018 then. She's very trendy.
Yeah. Yes, that is true.
They took her out of the 80s. I can appreciate that.
Sorry, the for anyone who's interested, like I said, this is just digital release, so you have to find it on. Just look for Cloak and Dagger 2018, I guess. Cloak and Dagger 2018 on Amazon or Comixology.com. So that's how you can get those digital comics. They're gonna come out with a print version in December, and you can probably get those from whatever bookstore, Amazon, Amazon.com, I guess.
Awesome. Well, that's where we can find Cloak and Dagger in the comics. Moving on to Cloak and Dagger in video games. The first place you can find them is in Marvel Avengers Academy. Want to talk about that one, Butch?
Yeah, so one of our listeners actually got me into this stupid game. So it's called Marvel's Avengers Academy, and it's a mobile game. I believe it's available on iOS and Android. It's called it's like a town builder. I think that's the genre of the game. You kind of collect Marvel heroes and some villains, and you have like a school, and you build you build up like little buildings. Like there's like an Avengers dorm, and then there's like a gym, and you see your little characters like walking around, and you have to let them do tasks. Like you have Captain America dancing in the disco. You can have the Wasp studying. Yes, and yes, it is for more casual gamers, I guess, because there's combat, but it's almost fully automated. You don't really to do much, just watch your characters fight.
So it's comparable to like, and what
I don't
I'm
know,
thinking
it's
is like the Simpsons game where you build your town and you have them do things and you earn points for having them do things.
oh, thank God you know that. Exactly. That's exactly it. It might even be the same people behind it. Tiny Co, I think is the name of the company. And yeah, you make them do things, and I think that from what I gather, the joy that you get from the game is just seeing the interaction, seeing them do actions like whatever they're doing. It's kind of humorous, kind of lighthearted, and then you'll have occasional dialogue between characters, and those are fun. Then the problem with the game is, if you're into Cloak and Dagger, you're gonna have to wait because not every character is available at all times. And did, what they do with the game is that whenever a Marvel show or a Marvel movie comes out, they have like a little event running at the same time, and you can, if you grind out whatever you need, and you can unlock like when Ant-Man and the Wasp came out, you can unlock Hope Van Dyne, you can unlock Hank Pym, and apparently they did something for the Cloak and Dagger TV show, but nobody ever used this stupid Cloak and Dagger hashtag. So
Aw.
and and I don't know, because obviously I don't think too many people are as into Cloak and Dagger as I am, and I had no idea that they did this. And one of our listeners at Chad Fuji, I think, told us about it. And the cute thing is, if you look at, oh, sorry, I should put this up. The cute thing is, if you look at the image from the game, Tandy and Tyrone in the game are wearing the exact same clothes that Olivia and Aubrey were wearing for one of the early shots. Can you see it? It's on our Twitter.
Oh, let me look, because I definitely
Yeah.
want to see that. Oh, they're adorable. Come on.
Right?
Look at Dagger's little outfit.
It's almost exactly the same
It
thing.
is exactly the same thing. That's
So it's
hysterical.
yeah.
I was also looking at the website, and I love the Tony Stark. He looks amazing.
Yeah, the art style is very. That's why I really got it. I got into it because I'm like the redesigns they did, because they reimagined every character as sort of a younger student. So
Yeah. Oh, look at Widow is like on her cell phone. She like has her little symbol on the back of her cell phone.
yeah,
I might have to
exactly.
download that. Now I'm afraid, because then I'll get into it. And
God, I hope so.
those
I need
games, like,
something.
you need somebody to send you points.
Yeah.
I got.
Oh, thankfully there's none of that. Thankfully there's none of that. There's none of that. But yeah. So if you're gonna look for Cloak and Dagger, you might have to wait. Chad told us that they tend to, if you didn't get the characters for the first time, you'll get a second chance at some point probably. So I'm waiting.
Awesome. I'm definitely. I was stuck looking at the website for that game. I better stay away from that. That's going to be dangerous. The other place that you can find Cloak and Dagger in video games currently is in Lego Marvel Superheroes 2, which came out at the end of last year. And I have played the Lego Marvel. I played the Lego games, and specifically the Marvel game, and they're so much fun. The Lego games are hysterical.
Yeah, yeah. So which one so that's you played. Would you remember if you played one or two?
I played the first one. I have the first one. I didn't know that they made a second one.
Right, right. So yeah, you remember, right? You go around and you have, it's lighthearted, and
Yeah.
it's pretty easy. It's a pretty easy game. You just keep plowing forward. You don't really die. I mean, you have sort of have unlimited life.
No, the
Something
best
you can
part
play
about
with.
it is that you get to like destroy everything. That's all made
You
out of
yeah,
Legos. That's the fun
you
part.
have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the fun part for sure. And also the fact that they have like everybody in the game, or almost
Yeah.
everyone.
Yes. You can get, and that's, you know what, I've also played the Lego Jurassic park game on a side note,
Right.
and it's just as fun, except you get to run around with dinosaurs and destroy stuff, so it's even more fun, in my opinion. But it's the same way. They have like you can get like every character, and they probably have Stan Lee in there too. I'm sure. Not even looking at the character list, but
Yeah.
like in the Jurassic Park game, you could get Steven Spielberg and his camera crew, and like just funny things like that. It's definitely a funny game where they'll do like funny cutscenes with good jokes, and but yeah, you get to go through the game, and there's things to do. There's definitely a plot and a story to follow, but the fun part is you get to destroy everything that's created out of Legos.
Right. And so Cloak and Dagger are in the second game, obviously called Marvel Lego Marvel Superheroes 2. Lego Marvel Superheroes 2. And one of the bigger differences from what you played is that there's an open world component to the game, which is a lot of fun because it's because of the way they structured the plot. New York sort of got overtaken by Kang, who's like this comic book villain who's like a master of time. So different areas of the city come from different time periods. So you have like a mashup of, you have, I haven't gone too far into it, but there's like a futuristic section, there's like a caveman section, there's Wakanda's in there, and the common citizens from each section can wander off into other areas. So you're walking around New York, and then you see I don't know, a dinosaur or a dragon running by, or somebody on horseback. So it's fun to just go around the open world. And as for Cloak and Dagger, they are one of the game's DLCs. If you get the season pass, and the game's been around for a few years, so it's not too expensive. I think it's like $20, something like that on Steam. And yeah, Cloak and Dagger, you can get the DLC, and they have a small, like a short little adventure that's just for them, which is a fun adventure because you only have the two characters, and you can switch back and forth, and they do that thing where you need to split up the characters, and one character is like doing something to help the other character proceed on his or her section of the map.
And the little Cloak Lego is really cute.
Little Cloak Lego is cute. Little Dagger Lego glows, which is something that she doesn't really do, or you don't see that in the comic books or anywhere else actually, which is really cool looking. I like the way that she has a little bit of luminescence in her costume, and most of their powers are faithful. So Dagger's doing her thing, and Cloak can kind of teleport. He can kind of fly, and they have like team up moves, and it's all fun. It's all just stupid fun.
But no, that's really cool though, and they stuck to like the original look of them. Like, Dagger has her '80s hair, and she has her costume, and Cloak. The picture I'm looking at is Cloak like being mad and crossing his arms, but the way that they stylize his cloak is cool looking. So he makes a neat Lego.
He does, and later we'll see that they actually did kind of make Lego figures of Cloak and Dagger.
Yes. Alrighty, so those are the video games that you can find Cloak and Dagger in currently. Moving on to our next area, tabletop games. Now, I have no idea about any of these, Butch, so take it away on tabletop games.
Yeah. Okay. So, just very quickly. So we'll start, I guess, with the HeroClix, which you're probably familiar with HeroClix.
Yes.
Okay, so HeroClix is I guess a tabletop miniatures wargaming kind of game, similar to Warhammer. It's probably the most, or Mage Knight. Those are probably the most famous version of that kind of game. Again, so this is more of a game for Marvel or DC fans in general. You collect. Yeah, you play the game on you print out a little map, and then you have your team of characters, and then your opponent has his team of characters, and usually you have each character has like a value point, and you have like a budget. So you're like, oh, let's play a 200-point game. So you fill up your team with 200 points worth of characters. And the cool thing about HeroClix is the way they do figure is that you kind of turn like a dial on each figure. Like each figure shows like different stats, like their health, their whatever, their offense or defense, movement. And as each unit takes damage, you turn a little dial on it, and the numbers adjust accordingly. So as a character gets weaker, their stats will go down. So it's just a very very simple, elegant implementation of that. I've never played, so I know a little bit about it. I just bought the Cloak and Dagger figures, and we're gonna put up graphics of that so you can see that the figures are really small. They're about, I don't know, as big as smaller than your thumb, I guess. And especially if you get like the weaker figures, they're not expensive at all. So if you want like little figurines to display of Cloak and Dagger, you can just pick these up off eBay, and you don't even need to know how to play the game or have other figures.
Yeah, it looks like the most expensive one on eBay is like $5, but they're neat looking, and they come with a little card.
Yeah, and like they're cheap, so you can if you want to take them off the little base thing the dial that you have to turn, you can just do that on your own. And there are also versions that have Cloak and Dagger together in one dial, so that it's like a little mini tiny cute statue. And surprisingly, the molding or the sculpting of the figures, I mean, for the early versions of Cloak and Dagger, it's kind of rough. But as the game has gone on and they've gotten better at making these figures, they're decent, for the size and the cost.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. Some of the earlier figurines are kind of, I don't think I would spend my money on them. They're not very nice looking, but I like these figures of the two of them together. Specifically the Civil War version of the two of them together with Dagger standing in front of Cloak. It's really nice looking.
Yeah, very elegant.
Yeah.
Sorry, and okay, so the other fun game that I have played is called Marvel Dice Masters. So it's like a collectible dice game. Unfortunately, I do not have Cloak and Dagger. I completely forgot that this game existed, but I'll probably pick it up soon. And the cool thing about this game is it's played entirely with dice. Each character, again, the concept is very similar to HeroClix. It's just you have your team, your opponent has your team. It's a 2-player game. Each character has their own card, I guess, and then the card will tell you how to play with the dice or whatever the powers whatever powers that each dice will have. And the dice themselves, they I guess your mileage may vary, whatever you're into, but especially in like if you have like a large collection of the dice, they do look pretty to look at, different colors, and you have a little you have a little graphic of representing like each character. So Spider-Man's dice will have like obviously a spider symbol. For Cloak and Dagger, it's actually pretty close to the Freeform show, even though I think these came out earlier. Like Dagger has like a diamond dagger shape thing, and Cloak has his whole body in on the dice. Again, these are cheap. Unlike the HeroClix, I don't think there's a point to these unless you actually have a lot of them or you actually play the game. So you'd probably have to check out the game on YouTube, see how it plays, if you're into it. Compared to other games, there's obviously a lot of dice, a lot of luck involved because it's a dice game. But there's and it can get complicated too if you're someone who plays Magic: The Gathering. It's kind of similar and probably simpler than that game, but compared to, you can't just play this with your nephew or your kid brother. So you might have to. It'll take a little bit of explaining. And oh, sorry, were you gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna say that sounds really neat, and I was trying to look for some pictures of it, and from what I can see, that does look really cool. So we'll post pictures of what we're talking about on the YouTube channel. But how about Marvel Legendary?
Okay, Marvel Legendary, very similar to Dice Masters in the sense that it's definitely more of a. If you're interested in the Marvel universe as a whole, like that would be a game that you pick up, and the I think that it's a unlike Dice Masters, unlike HeroClix, it's a cooperative board game, sort of like a board game, I guess, based on cards. So what you and your teammates are doing, you guys are building up your own personal deck. So you start off, from what I gather, you start off like with a deck full of like random shield agents, like really crappy characters. And as the game progresses, you start getting access to, I don't know, Spider-Man or Daredevil or She-Hulk, and you're trying to get rid of the worst, the crappier characters in your deck. So you're constantly shuffling and reshuffling your deck, and as you weed out the worst elements, the weaker characters, and you keep getting stronger characters, your deck gets better and better, and you guys are trying to stop like this constant stream of villains that are going through New York. And the fun thing about the game is you buy like just the what do you call the base game, and that's enough for you. And I think it's for 2 players, but you can probably you can expand the game to play with more people. But the base game, which I think costs something like maybe $30 to $40, that's enough, and you don't have to buy anything else. But at the same time, if you find that you like the game, you can buy expansions to it. Of course, you can fidget around with the rules. And the interesting thing is, I was actually involved with the game, sort of. Um, the company who made the game is called Upper Deck Entertainment, and I actually did a legendary game for them before. Legendary is the name of the brand. Sorry, it's not like a legendary game. It was like a legendary Predator game, and
That's awesome.
I did.
You did
Yeah,
art
this
for
is
it?
like I did some trading cards for them a few years back, and I remember. So I remember, like, even at the time, Marvel Legendary was already out, and I was like, I hope they keep me in mind, like for if they're gonna make Cloak and Dagger. But then I was like, nah, they're probably never gonna make Cloak and Dagger in this game. And then I find out, I think it was like last year even, that they did make Cloak and Dagger. And I'm like, I was like, kicking myself in the butt. I'm like, shit, I should have kept in touch with these people, because I really had no, like, I didn't think that there would ever be a Cloak and Dagger for the game. But they did come out in an expansion last year. I don't really know much about the game too, so I can't really tell if Cloak and Dagger are even like good characters for the game. But yeah, they have they're in the game. So if you're looking for more Cloak and Dagger gaming, like a Cloak and Dagger gaming fix, Marvel Legendary is something you can look for.
And Marvel, if you need an artist for Cloak and Dagger, we know somebody right here.
Oh God, it's tough to look at people drawing Cloak and Dagger. I'll tell you that.
I'm sure it is.
Like, oh, I'm better than that guy, even though I'm not.
All right, moving on from tabletop games on to toys. If you want to give us a quick overview of these, I will again put up as many pictures as I can of these cool statues.
Yeah. Okay, so if you're looking for things to just to display, you can there have been a few statues that have come out. I am going to start posting these. So I think I'll start off with the best one. The best one is came out like in 2004, I think. It's called the Diamond. Sorry, the Diamond Cloak and Dagger Diamond 2-pack mini bust statue 2-pack that came out in 2004. Kat, if you're looking at the our
Yeah.
feed, I posted up a picture. So it's actually two statuettes that combine. I guess their bases can stick together, so you have like one nice image of Cloak and Dagger. For me, this is the best one that's come out of all the Cloak and Dagger statues. I don't know. I just really like the sculpting of the figures. I like the Cloak and Dagger's little Cloak's menacing pose and Dagger's. She's very beautiful, I guess. I like her her 80s hair is definitely represented there.
Yes, it is. She's got strong
And
80s hair game in this statue.
yeah, for sure. So that one's it's a little bit older. They only made 2,500 of these. These will cost you like I don't know, $150, $150. And another good one is a 2009 Bowen mini bust. I think is what it's called, the 2009 Cloak and Dagger Bowen mini bust.
Yeah, that one's neat.
Yeah, so I don't have this one. I don't really like it too much. It's too. I don't know. What do you think about it when you look at it?
I think it's cool, but I'm confused about Cloak's pose, I guess. Like, he kind of looks evil in it, and like she's trying to get away from him. Or like rise out of the dark dimension. I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually it. The one cool thing about this figure is you can't really tell in the picture that I sent, but if you look at the dark parts of his cloak, like inside his cloak, there are like faces on it, like whoever did the sculpted faces on. Yeah, and from what I know, from what I gather, like the artist who did this, he did I don't know if it was like fan art of Cloak and Dagger, and he did it in sort of a similar pose with a similar idea of the faces in the darkness. And I don't know, I guess he was like hired by Bowen, not really the Tandy Bowen, Bowen the people who make the statues. He was hired by them to turn it into a statue, which is pretty cool, right? Yeah, so I don't know, I don't know, for me it's too symmetrical, I guess, or I don't like the sculpting of Dagger too much. Maybe she's a little bit too big. Her cloak's too small.
Yeah,
maybe.
I can understand that, since he's always represented as so much bigger than her.
Right, with the whole cloak thing. And last one of the older daggers, Cloak and Dagger statues. I'll just put this up because it is very, very expensive. I cannot afford this. It is the Sideshow Dagger Comic Cat. That's what it's called. And I don't know how big this thing is, but it's much bigger than it's probably the biggest statue. And
wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of risque, huh? For a statue.
Oh yeah, for sure. She's she's busting out.
She has a lot more hair.
A lot more hair, for sure. And a lot less cloak.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, at least he's represented there.
Yeah, so this is more of a high-end product, I guess. It's like, I don't know, $400, $500 for this big statue. And yeah, for me, it's just not worth it because I believe they market it as like a Cloak and Dagger statue, but it's mostly just Dagger, and she's holding, I don't know, like a blanket that looks like Cloak.
Right.
Or that's supposed to be Cloak. And if you see the original concept for the statue, like Cloak's head was supposed to be on there somewhere, but I don't know, maybe because of costs or whatever, they decided to take him out and just give the suggestion of him.
Yeah.
So it's mostly Dagger.
I mean, if you really like
And
Dagger, that's a cool statue. But that's pretty expensive.
for sure, yeah. Would you ever like spend, because you collect
Yeah, we have
Funko Pops, right? Would you ever spend like
$400 on a statue? We collect Funko Pops, but we also collect Assassin's Creed statues. And no, I would never spend that much money. I think the most I spent on an Assassin's Creed statue was, gosh, I don't know, maybe $80 at the most for one of them.
For one statue, $80.
Yeah.
Right.
Ooh, and that's usually because you can get, I mean, they have really cool statues for Assassin's Creed, to go off on another tangent, that do like the fit together thing. So like if there's two main characters in a game, they'll have like the two statues of those characters, and they'll fit together to make like a really cool scene. So you can usually, separately, they would probably cost like $150. They'd probably be like $75 each, $150 or so together to get both of them. But I mean, you can find these things in other places for cheaper. So I would not spend. Yeah, I would not spend. I would be curious as to how big this statue is too.
Yeah. From what I remember, it's probably something like, trying to, thank God people can't see us. 24, do the math.
Yeah,
30 inches. Is that too big? That might be too big.
I just feel like that's definitely not something I would spend like $400 on. Like there's a Star-Lord statue that I see every time I go into GameStop that I really want, that's like $120, and even that I'm like, nah, it's too much for a statue.
Right. Okay, so for people like us who won't spend that much, for sane people who won't spend that much, they're coming out with this one. I think it's gonna come out next year. Wait, why is it not? It is not showing up. Ooh. Okay, something's wrong with my Twitter. Anyway, they're coming up. Diamond, who made one of the statues I showed earlier, they're gonna come out with. And I believe you might even remember this. I sent you a picture before of a PVC statue, so that's why it's gonna be much more affordable. Yeah. They're gonna come out with a PVC statue of Cloak and Dagger next year, I believe. Next year. The line is called like the Diamond. Diamond is the name of the company. Diamond Gallery, yeah. And they make more affordable statues. Again, they save out. They save on the materials used, and that's how they cut costs. But you still get something like, I think it's like a 12-inch or more like 14-inch statue for around $40. So it's pretty good deal. And yeah, we're gonna show an image of the statue on our video, I guess. And that's it. That's it for Cloak and Dagger statues. For action figures, everybody likes action figures. There's only really two modern figures to get. Depends on it entirely depends on the size of the figure that you want. If you're more into those small 4-inch G.I. Joe size figures, you can get the Marvel Universe Cloak and Dagger figures, which came out a few years ago. Those are like $10, maybe $15 for each. G.I. Joe size, but still, pretty good articulation from the figures. And if you want the larger figures, they just came out with the Marvel Legends Cloak and Dagger figures, which is actually very interesting because Marvel Legends is the sort of the famous Marvel toy line of the past uh, 10, 15, 20 years. And they've been around forever. And for some reason, like Cloak and Dagger has been something that's always been rumored to come out. Like a lot of people have been asking for it. And for some reason, it just took forever. And, finally in 2018, they came out with the Cloak and Dagger figures. And I think it's like $30 for each, so not too affordable. You have to be kind of a hardcore fan, I guess, to get to spend that much money for the figures. But the figures are in the 6-inch scale, and with a lot of articulation and pretty good sculpting. So if you want that kind of figure, that's what you would get. And oh yeah, sorry. They also do Diamond also does mini mates, which are they look pretty much like larger Lego minifigs. And if you want the Cloak and Dagger versions of that, they've done two versions of Cloak and Dagger for that line. So yeah, just imagine the Cloak and Dagger from the Lego game, and that's what you're gonna get with the modern kind of Legos too, where they have like ball joints, so they're a little bit more portable than Lego minifigs from the 80s, I guess.
I like whatever Dagger is holding. Is that like a representation of her power?
Yeah, that's what they do with a lot of these figures. That's the Dagger's accessory is like an arc, I guess, of her daggers, which is actually pretty representative of how it's drawn in the comic book sometimes. Just a smaller version.
Very cool. All right, so that's our toys and statues. Moving on for TV show, you can find Cloak and Dagger in the Ultimate Spider-Man Web Warrior series, and we'll actually hold off talking about that because our next episode is going to be about the episode that Cloak and Dagger showed up in that series, season 3, episode 5. So stay tuned for that. And then finally, any other place you can get merchandise. I have a Cloak and Dagger shirt. My husband found it for me on eBay. Actually do not know where it came from specifically, but there is other Cloak and Dagger merchandise out there. As far as anything that I hope to see coming out in the future, again, I would love to see Cloak and Dagger Funko Pops. I think that they could make a really awesome set of 6, a nice little line of Funko Pops out of Cloak and Dagger, and that they would look really cool.
You can have like Fuchs in the refrigerator. Would that work?
Oh, they could do that. They could definitely do that, or have a chase version of Fuchs holding a stack of pancakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, that would be hard to get. But definitely I think they could have a really cute Tandy and Ty, and then a Cloak and Dagger, for sure. That I think that they would do pretty well as Funko Pops. I think that their look could translate into a Funko Pop pretty nicely.
Yeah, and Amina. I want Amina.
Yes. Oh, she'd be really cute. She had a little bee.
Yeah.
So that's my wish list. Do you have any toy or any other merchandise wish list?
For Cloak and Dagger, no, pretty much all the stuff that I've wanted is coming out or has come out because of the TV show. So thank you, thank you, Freeform.
Yes. Thank you.
I've been wanting Marvel Legends for Cloak and Daggers for the past 10 years, and new Cloak and Dagger statue is gonna come out, which I'm very excited for. And that's it. That's all. That's pretty much it. Yeah. I guess trading cards is a good thing. I'm always down to, because those are really cheap. I mean, it's just cardboard. So whenever they do a Cloak and Dagger, trading cards. I always try to pick those up. No, that I'm good with the wish list. I want to get the Cloak and Dagger pin that came out from San Diego Comic-Con a few months ago. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, so and that's it. I think that I'd be good with that.
Awesome. Well, we will wrap it up for this episode. We do want to quickly mention that Cloak and Dagger is up for a People's Choice Award. If we can get this podcast out before the 14th of September. So voting goes on until the 14th. We'll definitely tweet out about it. But Cloak and Dagger is up for a Sci-Fi Fantasy Show of 2018 award. So the People's Choice Award, you have to vote. And I believe to vote, you retweet their tweet. And this is from People's Choice Award. You retweet Cloak and Dagger on Twitter or Facebook. But they're up against Arrow, Black Lightning, Doctor Who, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Once Upon a Time, Shadowhunters, Supergirl, Supernatural, The Expanse, and The Originals. So we've got quite a bit of competition. Not sure how we'll fare there, but...
Yeah. Do you think they're going to get our votes? Because I'm not sure.
I mean, that list, there's so many things on that list. I think that, of course, the Shadowhunters fandom is going to have a really strong showing. I think that out of those shows that I listed, probably the top two fighting for that award are going to be Shadowhunters and Supernatural. That's my feeling on that.
Yeah, I agree.
And maybe Arrow. Arrow has a pretty strong following, too.
Which one? Sorry?
Arrow.
Oh, Arrow. Yeah. Well, the Arrow vote might get split because Black Lightning is under the same category. Doctor Who, I guess, has a lot of followers.
Yeah.
That's been around forever.
Yeah.
Speaking of shows that have been around forever.
Yeah, speaking of shows in their 100th millionth season.
Yeah.
I love Supernatural.
I love The Expanse, so I don't know. That's going to split my vote too. I think you only get like 20, 25 votes per day. And I don't know if we even have the strength for that, but I'll be voting for those two shows, Cloak and Dagger and The Expanse.
So we'll find out. Let me see if I can see when the actual show is. November 11th. So November 11th is when the People's Choice Awards actually is. So I guess we'll wait and see what happens. But since they're nominated, we're probably going to see Olivia Holt and Aubrey Joseph attend that award show. So I'm sure they'll be there and being extra cute together as they always are.
Yeah.
Because they do have a knack for that.
That's true.
And maybe since with that publicity, maybe we'll get like a trailer, some sort of teaser released for season 2.
Because November last year, that's when they wrapped the filming for season 1.
Yeah.
And that came out. I mean, they held that off, of course, but that came out in May. If they're gonna release earlier, maybe that means the show, the filming for season 2 will be wrapping around the same time too.
I feel like that's a very strong possibility, especially with that publicity going on already with the People's Choice Awards, that we'll see something come from Freeform for season 2.
Yeah.
Exciting. All right, guys, we will wrap up for today. Thank you, as always, for listening. Any comments, please shout them out to us on Twitter. Otherwise, we will see you again for our next episode. And again, that's going to be on the Ultimate Spider-Man Web Warriors Season 3, Episode 5, entitled Cloak and Dagger. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Enjoy your day.
Hey, guys.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Make sure you check out the show's description down below so you can follow us on social media. Talk to you next time.